Dzień dobry wszystkim. Zacznę krótko w języku polskim. Chcę Wam wyjaśnić, że dzisiaj będziemy rozmawiali po angielsku, bo mamy gościa, który nie mówi wystarczająco dobrze na pewno w języku polskim, zapewne parę słów zna. So I'm switching to English. I wanted to I informed all the people that we have a special guest who's speaking only English. Well, English, German, probably a little words in Polish, but not enough to answer the questions we have. So it's good to see you, Vinai. Welcome. Probably
Thank
I
you.
don't need to introduce you too much because you're well known to the community. You've been in the Magento and e-commerce community since at least 2011 from your LinkedIn, I checked. So it's good to have you here. Hi. Do you want to say a few words about you?
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, and apologies about my lacking Polish. No, it's a pleasure to be here. It's been around Magento for a long time indeed, and yeah, looking forward to the time to come. I think that's enough.
Yeah. Well, Vinai is the president of the board of Mage-OS Association, the newly formed association that is under actually a forming process. We will say a few words. What are the goals of the association? That's why we are here. We want to share what happened during the last few months, at least. And I have questions on which I prepared on my own, but also I asked some friends from Poland about what do they want to ask, what are their concerns about the community, about Mage-OS. So, and of course, I need to add that Peter is not with us today. I almost forgot that, but it's really important. Unfortunately, Peter is unwell and he's sick today, and he was unable to attend. So, Peter, thanks that you tried. We waited until the very last moment, but he was still unable to join. So, Peter, get well.
Get well soon.
We are with you. And soon, yeah. Peter is also a member of the board of Mage-OS Association, as am I. But today I'm going to be rather asking questions, maybe extending answers a little. So, Vinai, you will not be like overloaded with too many answers. So I'll start with the question I prepared. Generally, the business summary questions. This is the first part. So tell me, Vinai, who came up with the idea of establishing the association, and what was the beginning?
Right. So thanks. The beginning was about a year ago, September. Public letter, an open letter to the Magento community titled "The Future of Magento," and out of that, this whole initiative started. The original idea was something Willem Wichman come up with. And it's one of the things I admire about him, that he has the courage to believe he can change anything, right? So he had the courage to re-envision the Magento front end. And he also thought, well, yeah, I mean, let's we can take that even further and also work with the whole Magento stack too, if needed. So yeah, that was the beginning. The public letter, by the way, The open letter is still on the website, mageos.org, in the blog, the very first blog post there, if anybody hasn't read it or wants to revisit it.
And well, the letter was not widely accepted, right? There was over 1,500 signatures.
Yeah, in 2 weeks we had like 1,600 signatures under it, so we definitely struck a nerve there, and we closed the option to add your name and company after some time, but yeah, it made a big splash, and many people added their name to it, and it started a lot of discussion, and both in the community as well as in Adobe, and I think that has been very valuable. So yeah, we're pretty happy with it.
Yeah. So tell me, Vinai. Well, it's hard for me to ask this question because I know some of the answers at least. What will the association do? So, but well, you're sharing this with all the viewers we have. So, what will the association
yeah, sure. No,
do in general?
I'll try to surprise you. No, maybe not. So, by the way, just to clarify, we are talking about the Mage-OS Association, right? Because there's also the Magento Association. Maybe we have to make that clear, right? This is about the Mage-OS Association. And the purpose of the Mage-OS Association, what it will do is it will support the community. The goal is to make the community thrive. And with community, we mean all the businesses built around Magento, and it's the agencies building systems, it's the developer, the developers working on Magento, it's the merchants running on Magento, it's all the technology solution vendors, payment industry, hosting, AI, all the hundreds of other companies built around it and integrating with Magento. And the goal of the Mage-OS Association is to strengthen. There we go. Strengthen the whole Magento ecosystem. Sorry about that. Yeah, everything about it. Make all these businesses grow through Magento. So there's many things that we will do to make that happen. Yeah.
From my perspective, Mage-OS is there to address the needs of the community, the concerns, and yeah, it's complementary to what you said. So, like Magento Community is a huge community, the biggest e-commerce community probably from technical point of view, of course, around the world, from different perspective and development perspective. So, and well, there's too many people not to address their needs, and recently they've been like a little forgotten in the business area, let's say. So this is from my perspective, Mage-OS is there to support my business in the future, meaning that I know that there will be somebody who cares about the framework, about the community, that the community will exist. For me and for other companies who rely on Magento as a platform today, and Mage-OS maybe in the future. I have sorry?
That's absolutely right. I'm very much with you there. It starts with the branding so and ends with the development of the technical platform. Yeah. Sorry.
Now I have some questions from the community. So I'll start with the question from Panda Group, founder and CTO of Panda Group, Krzysztof Ratajczyk. It's a long question. It's a nice question to you and some of the companies you're related to. One day, one of our Magento developers said something like this: Hyvä has been the best thing that happened to Magento too. And the question, why Mage-OS is the best thing that happened to Magento too?
That's a very nice.
It's a hard one, right?
Indeed. Yeah.
It's a nice and so also a hard one.
No, but it's true. It's good. So I think Mage-OS is the best thing that happened, to quote those words, to Magento 2, is because it opens the door into a wide future, right? So rather than seeing Magento open source on the decline, because that is no longer a brand that is being put effort in, it's only just the beginning. So we envision a lot of growth in the future. And that's why I think it's the best thing that happened.
Yeah. And we will see in the future what are the results. So, but similar question maybe from, I have actually two questions. One from Piotr Szejczuk from Accenture. He's a senior manager at Accenture. and Boris Skraba, CEO of Strix. So they have kind of two similar questions. First from Piotr, if you could tell us one and only one thing you are proud of in terms of post Mage-OS start that you achieved within this venture. And Boris asked, please sum up the last few months in Mage-OS activities. So it's like Boris says most widely, and then we should point at least one thing that will satisfy Piotr's question.
Okay, so if I have to say one thing, if I have to name one thing, I'm most proud of how we as the group managed to really change the momentum and the direction where Magento open source and the ecosystem, the main development there, right, back into a much more positive traction compared to 18 months ago. Everything felt very doom and gloom. It's completely different now already, and that's really nice. So I'm super proud of that. And to sum up the last year or so, I guess, since we really started work on it, is and I'm also proud on those things, right? So I can mainly speak from the technical side there, I believe, because that's where I'm mostly feel at home. We built the whole release, not quite the release, but the packaging process out of all the different GitHub repositories, being able to generate all the composer packages out of these. That was all infrastructure that wasn't open source so far. That was somewhere hidden away inside of Magento or Adobe, right? So we are now able to do the same thing and also generate nightlies out of that. And that was really a great effort as a community with others, building this, adding quality insurance that it's really, we can with great confidence say, yeah, you can now use any of our packages, or you can use the upstream ones. And we know both are, so far for all the existing Magento releases, identical. And that really is a big step towards becoming independent that we're now building on going forward, creating our own distributions. But building all that infrastructure was great, and doing that together, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, well, Piotr added on the comment that your trip to Madrid by train doesn't count as the as an answer here. But I would say, from my perspective, what I was really surprised was your presentation in Madrid, on which I found out that there's over 500 people on the Discord. On our Discord. I actually, I was so focused only on my small part that I'm helping Mage-OS with that I didn't follow all the rest of the channels. And we started a few months ago, and boom, I found out there's over 500 people already involved there. And we actually, from what I discussed to many friends from Magento world, we are not promoting too much right now. They are not getting the information from Mage-OS, and still somehow we got to over 500 people involved. So and having this structure and this so much involvement from people is what I believe is something to be proud of, from my perspective.
I would just like to add that's a great point, and Discord, that's our main communications channel. So if somebody doesn't know it, which is totally valid, it's kind of like Slack, except that it has even in the unpaid account, it has unlimited history, where Slack with a large team, it's a problem. It's either very expensive or you just have a very limited history. And for that reason, we're using Discord there. And not everybody likes it, but some people love it. And it's just a bit different UI. And of course, of those 500 people, it varies a lot how active people are. Not everybody's super engaged all the time, but still, there's been a lot of growth. And I agree, it's actually surprising how many people are there already. It's very nice.
Yeah, so now we switch to platform development questions. Another question from Krzysztof Ratajczyk, founder and CDO of Panda Group. On the official Magento 2 repository, we see a lot of pull requests, issues, improvements that are not merged but solved to the Magento 2 core. Do you plan to merge these issues into the Mage-OS Magento repository?
A short answer, yes, but we won't do so indiscriminatory, right? We want to definitely ensure that backward compatibility is a big important factor for us. So we don't want to break all extensions, right? So we have to take care we merge them in the right way or solve all the solutions in the right way. But yeah, I agree. There are many fixes to problems in pull requests that are for our customers of our businesses very important. Maybe not so they're just not a priority for Adobe there, so that's why they haven't been merged so far, processed so far, but that's definitely the part of the intention we have, yes, pulling those in.
Great. And the same question from the same person, so from Krzysiek. How should Magento developers start contributing to Mage-OS? Any practical tips?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at the moment, we're just building out our capability to really accept and process contributions. At this point in time, we're not quite there yet, right? So we're building, at the moment, contributions mean building infrastructure. So that's improving GitHub actions, for example, and creating new GitHub actions that will allow us to process, when we're ready, to really process a lot of pull requests and improvements to the core in a more efficient manner. So while we're doing that, the opportunities to actually contribute on a technical level are somewhat limited. At the moment, I would invite people to join our weekly technical meetings. That's every Tuesday on Discord at 3 p.m. So today at 3, you can join Discord and just hang out there. If you're interested how development is going, join there. It's very informal. We talk over anything that's the next steps that we're working on. Maybe give a recap what happened recently. Ask questions. Trying to figure out one step after the other. What we're doing to get into the state where we can actually then create our own releases and merge pull requests to improve Magento or Mage-OS itself.
Great. And I have another question from Piotr from Accenture. I will read some other questions, of course, from other guys, but it happened that people we didn't have too many questions that we could merge, and Piotr asked some platform related questions, so that's why he's so muchly involved in the beginning here. But can you explain to the audience what is the process and why pull requests review and merge is faster within Mage-OS versus standard Adobe open source commerce?
Yeah. Okay, so there were two parts there, right? Review the process and why is it faster, correct? So the process is actually something we're working on right now. So I can't properly answer that. That's what we're developing right now. Why I believe it will be faster is because it's more along our in our own best interest to get them merged faster and to process them faster. And it aligns with our product vision, so to speak, right?
We wanted to address the needs of the community, and I heard this need since I joined the community. It was many years ago. So to have this process faster, it's really important. How are you planning to secure main Magento Adobe repository source code compatibility? Or maybe we don't. In case we are fixing some core issues, but at the same time, the core team made significant changes that are breaking our fixes. So,
yeah, that's an excellent
detailed question here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I believe, as many others, that the extension vendor market is a huge value proposition for Magento. And that's, of course, something we want to keep active and enabled. So if we make a change that breaks all of them, that would be to the huge detriment of everybody. So that's why we want to keep this backward compatibility. Now, Magento also has some backward compatibility developer guidelines in their documentations and such, but that's not technically what I'm talking about. I mean, to a certain degree it is, but I see backward compatibility on a bit more pragmatic level, because not every backward compatibility breaking change has the same impact. So one of the most stable parts of the Magento core, for example, has been the database so far, the database structure. And I think that's super important to keep intact, right? Because many people developed customizations built on top of it, and those should continue to work. So any change in that regard should be made very carefully. On the other hand, there might be some parts of the Magento core which wouldn't impact the wider community pretty much at all. For example, there might be some obscure module that happens to be part of the core that is very rarely used, maybe even broken, and nobody cares because nobody uses it. There are some corners of that like that in Magento, right? And making backward incompatible changes to these parts might have a different impact. So that might be an option, right? So I see a lot of potential improvements that can be made to the Magento core in terms of performance, scalability, bug fixes, without breaking backward compatibility that doesn't really impact anybody. Ideally, my goal is there that stuff just works, right? That nothing breaks in general. I am not a big believer in Semver, so I don't think backward compatibility breaking changes are okay, like ever. They just shouldn't be made. So yeah, I still think there's a big potential for improvements. And that part of that is also that new features will be added as new modules rather than as, probably optional modules rather than being baked into everything as it is right now. Again, allows several benefits like independent release cycle. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm going too far. Please.
No,
did you answer the question?
Actually,
I got a bit distracted.
Yeah, you did answer the question, but I would add that it's a community-driven project. So everyone can be included on the 3 p.m. call and have their opinion there. Because your answer is it depends, and I like this kind of answers because everything depends on the situation. Like changing the database structure would be quite risky. Maybe not always, but it's kind of risky thing. But on the other hand, if anyone from the community is afraid of having their core changed, then they can be included in the process of and voting maybe, or actually in the community, the best thing to do is to just be involved in doing stuff, not only deciding stuff. This is how community works best, from my perspective. But I'm no specialist in that field. I know how to program, but I haven't been a developer ever. So yeah. So I hope it makes sense what I say.
I agree.
Okay.
It's open source. So yeah.
Yeah, I used I'm a system engineer, so I used many open source tools, and I even did some corrections in my history to really old tools, like tools 2000 to 2005. I was a system engineer, so I'm quite old. Okay, so probably the last question from Piotr. Can you share some statistics after launching Mage-OS, technical wise, number of open versus closed PRs, average time of open PR, etc.? So it's probably easy question for now.
Yeah. Okay. So at the moment, that's not really a meaningful metric, first of all, because since we're just building the infrastructure, it doesn't really like we're not actually changing anything yet in the core. We do have plans to do that probably today or tomorrow, actually merging like the first pull request into the core as, you know, like a test, very controlled scenario. It's not like at the moment, if a pull request is opened, it's too early. We're not there yet, right? So at the moment, it would be better to open it upstream, meaning at Magento open source, and then we'll take it from there. In maybe 3 to 6 months, it's a different story. So please ask the question again in a year, and we'll have a more meaningful answer there. I just remembered one thing from the last question, which was about how to secure the repositories, right? I totally skipped over that. So in that regard, we set up Terraform to have permission management for all our GitHub repos and teams, and require a certain number of reviews and such. So that's one part of it. The other part is we're working with security professionals in the area to ensure our infrastructure is secure there. So that's, we're doing our very best.
It's fair enough. Actually, it was more about keeping the core compatible.
Okay.
So, relating to security updates, for example, but it was rather related to keeping the compatibility and core unchanged, at least on some level. So I'll now switch to. I just wanted to add that we see your questions, the guys who are writing comments, and we are answering the questions at the very end of today's live. So we're going to the next section, which is education part. A question from Hatimerias developers. Do you plan to certify developers on Mage-OS to confirm their knowledge and experience?
That's a good question again. So since
probably not
Adobe,
you, Vinai, but the organization.
Magento exams, yeah, they're no, not me, certainly. The Magento certifications are headed all towards, you know, just cloud instances, Magento Cloud, Commerce Cloud. So it's not necessarily that relevant anymore. So maybe at the moment there are no concrete plans, but if that's a need of the community, then yeah, then that probably will become a project in the Mage-OS Association, and at one point in time that'll happen. And the more urgent the need is, the more people will be willing to work on it, right? That's how community works.
Yeah, I have a similar question, education related, from Krzysiek Abram, CEO of Gate Software. As a part of the agency's biggest problem, shortage of developers, do we plan to develop a learning path with online materials for Magento front and backend developers in 2023? So
right, we've got a number of so yeah, please.
Well, I actually could say that like it's a community-driven project. We know that there are a lot of people in community who were involved in creating courses, trainings. They could be involved in creating certification paths. The community can be involved. So the community may decide how and whether we will have this. Of course, we want to have this. I mean, as an association, because this is the right way to prove, I mean, certification, to prove that somebody has knowledge and experience. At least knowledge, not always experience, but usually at least some experience. And of course, learning paths are important, and having courses for developers would be great. But I would say I would refer this question to people who are involved in Mage-OS and in Magento community, who already did this in their history. I could name at least 2 or 3 people who did this. Vinai, you actually were a trainer at some. At least this is what I read somewhere.
That's true for many years. I would like to answer that question too, because it's a nice example of how I think this whole construct will work. At the moment, there are many resources for training, like you said, Maciej, right? So there's a lot of people who make their living out of giving trainings and consulting about how to develop these things for Magento 2. So in a way, the situation for new developers coming into Magento 2 has never been better. There are more resources than ever before. And that's part of the community and how the community is building their livelihoods. For that reason, I don't think it would be good if the Mage-OS Association would compete with the community there, right? We want to support them rather. So one aspect that is important for me, and hopefully others too, is especially because I spent many years giving training for developers, I want to make it easier for developers to get started. And that means just setting up a Magento instance locally to develop. So the usual answer that I get from people there is, oh, just use Docker or whatever. It used to be Vagrant, or just use a cloud instance. But that's actually a very privileged answer that doesn't apply to all cases at all. There are many situations where that doesn't work, both in large corporations where maybe computer restrictions on each developer's workstation forbids them using Docker in a usable manner, right? So we had that in like an enterprise with tens of thousands of employees weren't able to use any of the many different Docker-based development solutions for Magento 2, for example. And other people who might not even know about Docker or anything yet, they're just getting started as developers. Why does it have to be so hard to set up a Magento instance? I want it to be possible to download Magento 2, set it up, getting it running on a very minimal stack with just whatever, MySQL, PHP, nothing else, like a web server. That's all, a basic XAMPP stack. And it shouldn't matter whether it's Windows or Linux or Mac OS, any of those should just work. And I think that would make it a lot easier for developers to get started, because then they wouldn't have to worry about how do I set up this whole stack, because honestly, it's taken people a week or more just to be able to do the first steps in Magento development. So that's an area where I can see us helping a lot. Of course, these stacks wouldn't be production ready, but it would be possible for developers just to get started. So making that easier would be great.
Yeah.
Creating learning material, I think not so much. I think that's something that the ecosystem actually is handling quite well. So yeah, by bringing in new developers, we're helping them do their job better too.
You mentioned one really important matter here, that Mage-OS is there not for to compete with the community, is to help community grow. So if we have people who do something, that Mage-OS is not there to compete or to do any development, any trainings, certifications, or hosting offerings. Seeing from my perspective, Mage-OS is there to help the community grow. So we are there to help the community and to be an instance who has no like rivalry goals with the community, because then it would be difficult. So it's the association. It's not a business who seeks to be like the biggest in financial manner. Okay, I have a question about memberships. We switch to memberships question. We have two memberships. One from Marek Syrek, founder of Alpha Code. What's the status of the membership and supporter program? And actually, I would also already merge it with question from Paweł Biliński, CTO and co-founder of Lizard Media. Is there a plan for a partnership program for software houses, so they can be involved in the community and they can have influence on the stability and development of Magento community? Or here it would be rather Magento Mage-OS community, because right now it's one big community. So yeah,
absolutely. So at the moment, we're still in founding. The association is technically still in founding, so we're waiting for the registry to complete the whole process. I don't know the details of the process, to be honest, but that's happening. So all the paperwork has been signed, etc. It's just a matter of waiting for it to get done. Once that's done, the Mage-OS Association can open a bank account, and then we can open up for members to join. We'll have different tiers for different types of members. So we'll have generally members are regular people, so there'll be a membership level there. But we will also have supporting member tiers for companies. And depending on a company's size and how much that company is using Magento to do their day-to-day work, be it a merchant or be it an agency or whatever, there'll be different tiers there. And that's a way how a company can become part of Mage-OS and support the whole organization. And that's going to happen as soon as the registry is done. So I don't know exactly, but maybe in January or such. We'll see.
Well, I may add a few words because I know the formal process. So the filled forms were sent to the court registry, and we had to make small corrections to the statute, which slowed down the process a little. Whoever and wherever and whenever tried to register an organization knows that it may take 1 or 2 iterations to clear things out, especially if it's a huge international community involved, meaning that board members are like from all of us are from different countries, mostly, meaning like we have 2 people from US and 2 from Germany, probably, or but still, or it's we have 2 versions of the statute, meaning not two versions and 2 different languages. So the process needs to takes some time, but everything else is going quite well. And once we are registered, officially registered, then the membership will start, and membership and partnership programs may start. So we are just waiting for this, and we're gonna carry on. Okay, another question from Bartosz Zakręta, CEO of Hatimeria. Does the board already have some plans for investing in building Mage-OS brand awareness among the merchants? It's right now we are starting the strategy plans part. So question about our strategy, brand awareness among merchants, especially.
Short answer, yes. Absolutely, it's super important.
Yeah,
especially since Adobe doesn't, since Adobe isn't focusing on the Magento brand anymore at all. It's especially important, and that's an area we want to move fast in. And we're working with many people in the community to shift that brand awareness over and to create this as a new brand.
Yeah.
New ideas are very welcome there too. So please join Discord and help us.
Of course, like the bigger the community is, everybody will benefit from being stronger. So joining is the good option to building a first brand awareness of Mage-OS, not only directly to merchants but in the community, and then it's the second phase to promote among merchants. I have right now a few questions, well, kind of technical, kind of strategical. First is from Panda Group again. Krzysiek, thank you. As a Mage-OS, do you plan to contribute to Magento PWA Studio?
That really depends on the community, right? So we don't have plans per se, but if there are people who are willing to work on that and who see that as a priority for themselves and their businesses, then yes, of course, because it's basically somebody, I don't remember who called it, I think the law of feet or something. So wherever people go, that's what happens, right? So it's not like somebody at Mage-OS has this grand idea, this is what we're going to build, and everybody has to move in that direction. It's rather more like, okay, there are many people and everybody has their own priorities, and where enough people gather around a priority and move the project forward in that direction, that's what's going to happen. So we'll see.
It's a community-driven project, so yeah, we'll see.
So I'm not against it at all.
From
to clarify.
Question from Jakub Zembala, tech lead at Hatimeria. Do you have any plans to split Magento open source into a set of Magento distributions with a limited amount of features, modules? For example, exclude those that came from third-party vendors and are usually removed by developers as the first thing in the project. Another kind of Mage-OS distribution might be dedicated to using Magento only as an API application. This was rather a comment, but first there was a part that there was a question part.
Totally. Yeah, that's one of the main goals. So at the moment there are, I said earlier, like whatever people want to do, that's what's going to happen. But of course, there are a number of ideas that the people currently involved with Mage-OS have. One of them being making it easier for new developers, as mentioned before, and another one being to enable this kind of reduced set of packages to allow specialized versions of Mage-OS, right? So maybe an API-only version, or maybe a version that is optimized for a certain industry vertical, maybe B2B, or maybe textile industry, because in some countries there might be a certain number of integrations that are very commonly used within a certain vertical. So an agency solution provider who specializes in that vertical might use Mage-OS as the foundational distribution and tune it exactly with a number of pre-created integrations for a specific vertical and create their own version of it. And to do that, one of the main goals is to reduce and clean up the dependency graph inside of Mage-OS. At the moment, it's a big cluster. It's a hard problem to solve and not one that can be solved in a single step. That's going to be an ongoing effort, but we've got a lot of good ideas and many people inside of Mage-OS are interested in doing that work. So that's something that is going to happen, and that will benefit all different areas around it, right? It will allow more and more specialized lightweight distributions to be created. It will enable a better developer experience by reducing the time it takes to run tests. It will make it better and possible to create releases quicker because there will be less chances of conflicts and backward incompatible changes, etc. So there are many benefits that come out of this work of cleaning up the dependency graph.
Well, everybody will benefit from what I know. Another question from Jakub Zembala: will Mage-OS require Adobe consent to add new features, modules, or significantly change the core modules? So basically, how close the Magento and Mage-OS feature roadmap will be?
At the moment, we have a GitHub action that automatically merges any changes that happen upstream, so in the Magento open source GitHub repositories, on top of any changes we make. So as long as there aren't any conflicts, that actually happens automatically. They get merged, the tests get run to see if everything still works. So we're trying to stay as close as possible. But of course, over time, there will be more and more changes too. So conflicts will happen, and then a human has to step in and resolve those code conflicts so it still works. We do plan to stay close, that this process can continue for the foreseeable future as long as Adobe wants Magento open source to stay that close to what it is now. If a huge change happens upstream that breaks a lot of backward compatibility, for example, maybe then the decision will be, oh boy, okay, do we really want to go to this step, or does that no longer align with where we see Mage-OS to be headed, right? So it's not just up to us. it depends, right? So at one point in the future, probably there'll be a point of divergence, but at the moment, the benefits of being compatible far outweigh the benefits of just having a clean break. That would be, I think, if we were to make such a break right now, in terms of compatibility, that would kill the project. So that's not an option. We need to stay compatible, and we don't want to split the community. This is one effort. We all want the same thing in the end. Yeah.
Great. Well, I have a question from Pavel Pilinski from Lizard Media. Will Mage-OS be involved in the development of Magento Community available on GitHub? I haven't considered that.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot also in the open source task force from the Magento Association with Adobe. And if we make changes to Mage-OS that are not part of Magento open source, and those changes prove to be beneficial and work well, then there's nothing to stop Adobe to take those changes and cherry pick them into Magento open source. So again, that's not our decision, but that would be great if that happens. So yeah.
Okay, and I have a remark and a question from Piotr Shejczuk. The remark is, in case Mage-OS is something that could be recommended to enterprise level clients, they would be asking for references, meaning another big players. The best would be global ones that are using Mage-OS and can be contacted to cross-check their feedback after usage of Mage-OS. Lessons learned, pros and cons versus standard open source commerce application version. Of course, this is we agree with this. Probably, you also agree with this remark. For now, Mage-OS and Magento are quite compatible. So, referring to companies who use Magento means like they're using Mage-OS at the same time. But for sure, in the future, addressing enterprise level clients have different concerns than SMB market. So, presenting in SMB, it's more up to the agency to pick up the proper framework, the proper tools, and of course, it needs to prove itself. But let's say Mage-OS will prove itself because it's not an immature project. But for enterprise level clients, at least I know some of the other concerns like compliance issues with PCI DSS compliance that we need to address, and we will I will help. I'm involved in the community in a way that I want to help address this particular requirements from enterprise level clients to let them to let them know that it's PCI compliant. This is what I would ask as a remark here. And it's not a question because it's not an answer because it wasn't a question, but this is my comment to this comment here. Did I want to add something?
Yeah, maybe I'll add that one of the areas that we're Mage-OS, the folks involved in Mage-OS are working on very hard is creating a website with merchant-focused content about Mage-OS case studies. So once there are merchants running on Mage-OS and there are case studies, for example, if it happens to be an enterprise side, then that can go there. Comparisons with Magento open source and Adobe Commerce and other e-commerce platforms, and all the information a merchant or a company might be interested about Mage-OS, right? That will be available there. So that's the content that used to be available partially on Magento.com. Now that domain doesn't exist anymore, but that is going to become part of Mage-OS.org. And there'll be more content actually than was ever available on Magento.com. So we see that there's a big need by the ecosystem, this kind of information, not just technical, but also technical. and but not developer oriented mostly. Right? It's more for other people, for agencies, for merchants, for other people in the industry. And yeah, that's something that kind of is related a little bit to the question, I guess. So I thought I might put that out there.
Yeah. And last question from Piotr Cheichuk. He asked, can I throw a grenade here? Mage-OS point of view in terms of recent changes, additions to Magento Association, comments, feedback.
Okay.
It's not a grenade, let's say.
Yeah, that's a good
At
question.
least not
It's
that
fun.
heavy one.
Sure. Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, I think that's probably what the question refers to, which is Matthias Schreiber, former CTO, I think, of the Typo 3 GmbH, joined the Magento Association as executive director. I'm not sure about the exact title, to be honest. Doesn't matter. So anyway, he's a great guy, and he joined. So I respect him a lot, and I think he'll probably make some great changes. He'll be replacing Smith Buckland there, with the company which so far has been doing much of the executive work inside of the Magento Association. And that's great. If there are changes to the better inside of the Magento Association, I'm super happy. I don't see them as a competition, to be honest. We're one community. So anything that benefits our ecosystem is good, right? So I hope he'll do a great job. He's a good guy. I like him. I respect him. And I don't know what else to add.
Yeah, I agree. It's one community. So we have the same goal, and as long as we have the same goal, everything is fine. Like, we need just to find a way to cooperate. I have a question from Alpha Code's developers. Will Hyvä theme become the default frontend for Mage-OS?
That would be nice. Okay, so Hyvä is the product of the company that I'm part of, that I work with. Now, that's basically where the company gets its revenue from, that theme. So if it were just an open source part of Mage-OS, the company would be dead immediately, and it would be impossible to develop that theme further, right? So it would be nice, but at the moment, we don't know how to do that. Just give it away for everybody. Even though, of course, it would be great, because I think nobody's satisfied by the Luma theme anymore. So it's good that there are alternatives, and Hyvä is just one of the alternatives that exist out there, right? So if we figure out a way to do it without the company going bust, then yeah, maybe, who knows? But at the moment, that's not a real option. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have one question from the viewers, from Aaron Moss. Does Mage-OS have any plans to provide a new marketplace for vendors?
Is there a need? I think probably that's something that maybe. I could see a benefit in having a marketplace that tests compatibility between modules, but maybe that's more towards this idea of specialized distribution built on top of Mage-OS. So at the moment, I personally don't have any plans or ideas, or don't see that as a priority. And maybe other people see that as a priority, and then it might happen. But yeah, that's basically all I can say about that at the moment.
Aaron added that he thinks that there's a general consensus that Adobe Marketplace has never been the success when compared to Magento Connect. And the reason he asks is based on possible revenue stream for the association. So yeah, it's a community-driven project, so it's for sure an option. But for sure, I'm not to comment here, because I'm not in this part. I'm not involved in this part. But good question, Aaron. Thank you. And I'm not sure we have no more questions. So yeah, it was. We planned usually the live events for 45 to 60 minutes. So we made it. It's 55, 56 minutes. It was like you're probably tired, Vinai, because you answered most of the questions. I really want to thank you. I really want to thank you for that. It's really great to have you and the community and Mage-OS and as a friend generally. I really value your opinion on many different areas, especially that Magento way better than me from many different perspectives. So I really want to thank you for your time today. You want to add anything?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you organizing this, setting this up. This is great for the community as a whole, and it's great that different people like both of us are involved in this. The business side is just as important as the technology side, right? So I've been basically on the developer side doing my thing. You do a lot of business related aspects of the association and so on, and it wouldn't work if either of those would be missing, right? It wouldn't work. So it takes a village, and that's why it's so good to have you here, to be there, and have all the other people here who are involved, and that's a beautiful thing. So I really appreciate you organizing this and everything. Maybe next time Peter can join.
Nice to hear that. Yeah, I also need to apologize, Kuba from Snowdog, for forgetting to ask him if he wants to ask any questions today. He's really the leader of the Mid Magento Poland, and he probably has some questions. He's also Snowdog's involved. So Snowdog guys, also thank you for being involved. I want to thank all the companies and people from these companies who asked questions today. I really want to thank all the viewers we have. I would like to encourage you to join Mage-OS, to join our Discord, to join association once it's formed. It's really important for all of us because it's like you, Vinai, mentioned in Madrid. About Magento Association and Mage-OS, that there's a competition there, so we need to cooperate. We don't need only to have to compete, and like joining forces in the community also means that many same segment companies join their forces to grow the community, to make the market bigger, and to make the project stronger. And this is what's it all about. So once the merchant, from my perspective, chooses Mage-OS and Magento, they need to see the community behind it, and so that's why it's really important for companies and from individuals to join association, because there's a strength and the size of the community, at least not only in this, of course. The quality is really important, but the quality is there. We know it. But building a community of people who are involved and interested in building a strong Mage-OS and Magento community is really important. So please, guys, join our social media, follow social media, and join the Discord and the association once it's formed. And this is probably the last word. These are probably the last words from my side. Do you want Vinai to add anything?
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Good last words.
Thanks. And see you soon. See you in January. I mean, Polish people, because this live is usually in Polish. So the next one is in January about the situation on the e-commerce market and generally retail market regarding crisis. It's going to be announced soon. So thank you, guys. Thank you, Vinai.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.